a student, mentor, or parent that loves robotics? Then you're in the right place. Up-to-date info on all things robotics. This is the RoboZone Podcast with your host, Pete Ekman. The RoboZone Podcast is brought to you by Kettering University. It's a Kettering-built world.
Hello and welcome to the 65th episode of the RoboZone Podcast. This podcast is for Tuesday, June 26th. In this episode, we cover IRI, or the Indiana Robotics Invitational. We have a great conversation with Collin, who is leading up the coordination of that event. So, I hope you really enjoyed this interview, because I did. So, let's get to the interview.
The RoboZone Podcast is brought to you by AndyMark.com, your robot parts experts.
In this podcast, we're covering more summer events, but probably one of the biggest summer events when it comes to FRC, and that's IRI. And with me tonight, I have Collin. Collin, please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Collin Fultz. I am a mentor on Team 234, Cyber Blue from Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm also an alumni of Team 234. I have a degree in mechanical engineering from Purdue University, and I am on the Indiana Robotics Invitational Planning Committee.
And that's one of the big reasons we have you on here. I reached out to Andy Baker through Andy Mark because they're a huge sponsor with you guys, and he said, "Hey, let's get Collin on here. I don't want to take up people's time, and we'll get Andy on at a later time. He's kind of bashful." And I joke around with him a lot about that because he sponsors our podcast. So, but you used to work for FRC directly, right, Collin? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I actually used to live in Manchester, New Hampshire, and worked for the first robotics competition from like the fall of 2010 up until January of 2015. So worked on the kit of parts there. Had a hand in putting the kit together every year, working with suppliers to get new parts, included in the kit, and then got to actually be a part of the game design teams for quite a few of the games, in that time frame. And now I still work for FRC, not for FRC. I work for First Lego League Junior now, a remote position that I can do from Indiana.
Nice. And we'll talk about, I'm going to interview for IRI now, but now that I know you put the kit of parts together, I really want to dive into that later. So let's talk about IRI. Give us a little bit of background about IRI, Collin.
Yeah, so IRI started in, I believe it was 1999 in Kokomo, Indiana, one of the first off seasons, not the off-season event held in FRC. But so started in Kokomo, 1999. My first experience with it was as a student on Team 234 in the fall of 2001. Back then it was a fall off-season event. And so I went with the team and competed, and that was my first year on the team, gearing up for the 2002 season. Starting in 2002, the team in Kokomo kind of started to say, this is growing really big. We're outgrowing our venue, and it would be great if we could get a few more teams involved to help do the heavy lifting. A lot of work goes into putting an off season together. So we moved the event down to Indianapolis we found a nice big gym. That the key thing for being an event in July in Indiana was that the gym and the pits were air conditioned, so that limited our number of venues that we could go to. But we actually found a gymnasium and a school system that did not have an FRC team, but was very interested in having a team. So we were able to use that first year of the event to really, introduce all of their administration and their teachers, get some kids excited. And that started Team 1024, the Kilobytes, that next season. Ever since then, it's really been a team effort with a number of Central Indiana teams, originally 234, 393, and Team 45. Team 393 no longer competes, and Team 1024 has come in, and they really do a great job as our site host and, helping make sure that everything that we need for the event to happen from a venue perspective is there. And we've got great support from their administration and the staff at their school. We couldn't run the event without them.
And right, with this being an invitational, right? What does it qualify? How does a team qualify to be invited to IRI?
It's changed over the past, couple of years. Originally, it was called the Indiana Robotics Invitational, but there was no formal invitation process. It was like most other events. If you signed up, you could come. About 6 or 7 years ago, the event started to get too big for all the teams that wanted to come, and for it really to be one event. So at that point, the planning committee kind of took a step back and said, we really hate to say no to people that want to come, but we can't just keep growing and keep making this event bigger and bigger because more and more teams want to come. It really takes away from everybody's experience there if there's too many teams. So we instituted an application and a review process that then lead to a set of invitations that go out to a the selected number of teams for that year.
I've been at your event for multiple years. I was with them when 494 and 70 went. Last year, I came in just a capacity as a podcaster because, again, Andy Mark helped sponsor the podcast, and we thank them for their sponsorship. But I wanted to do my due diligence and be a gracious podcast host, and I made myself available, and I actually was working in that area last year. So it kind of just the balls all lined correctly so that I could get there. Had a lot of fun. But, people pretty much don't understand unless you go how intense it is. Now, you said it's competitive, and it is. I remember a banner that I saw. It says IRI, where teams come to really compete or something like that. Isn't there like a moniker behind the event?
Yeah, so a couple of years ago, we actually started, we give out blue banners just like we went at a regional to the teams that win IRI. And then we've got, because we are, of course, in Indiana, and Indiana high school basketball is big. So a lot of the gyms, the gymnasiums that we go into, you've got state championship banners hanging or similar things. So we started hanging blue banners with the winners from every year on them. And right in the middle of all of those blue banners is a banner with the IRI logo with a slogan that we coined probably, 5 or 6 years ago at this point. And it's where the egos come to play. And that's, it's kind of, it's the teams who are willing to travel across the country in a lot of cases in the middle of the summer and bring their robot with them for an off-season event to see how they stack up against a whole bunch of teams that they may not have had the opportunity to see throughout the year.
And what are some of the teams? I think we're going to see the Cheesy Poofs have been there, but what are some of the other big-name teams that have come to IRI?
Oh, we've had, the Cheesy Poofs have come from far away. The Beach Bots come pretty regularly. Symbotics and OP Robotics come down from Ontario. And then being so close to Michigan, we get a lot of the great Michigan teams that come every year. And then, for a long time, the team in all of FIRST and all of FRC was Team 71, Team Hammond from right up the road in Hammond, Indiana. And so, a lot of teams would come to IRI to maybe get another crack at defeating the Beast after Hammond won 3 world championships in 4 years. So really, it was it's the opportunity to play against those championship level teams that maybe you didn't get to see because they were in a different division or you didn't quite qualify to make it to championship. And for those of us that are local, the opportunity to see all of those teams compete, not in a giant 60,000 seat football stadium, but in a 2,500 seat high school basketball gym where you're right on top of the action. It's competitive, but a little more laid back. You have a little bit more time in the pits where you can go up and really talk to teams about their robots, really, get your head in there and talk to the kids and the mentors about the decisions that they made, and learn a lot as well. And so I think a lot of teams like it, both from a competitive environment, but then also the opportunity to look and say, ooh, hey, what Team 118 did this year was really neat. Let's go and make sure we check them out at IRI.
So a team that isn't necessarily competing, but a team that maybe they have a large turnover of children or students in their teams, say they just graduated maybe 8 out of 40 kids. it'd be a good experience for those teams to come and pick the minds of those teams that are sitting at IRI, because it is kind of the creme de la creme of robotics teams across our country, right? Because there is a interview process.
Not an interview process, but there is that application
Right,
and then the invitation. Yeah. But yeah, and just because it's so much more, it has kind of a more relaxed feel than the championship does. Everything is a little closer, so you don't spend as much time walking, between the pits and the stands. And then just because it's an off season, it is competitive. Everybody there wants to win. But a lot of teams are a bit more open with what they're doing and why they did it, and because now you've had the whole season plus a bit of the summer to really study and look at, okay, what teams did these kind of new and cool things that we want to learn about. And I'm always amazed every year at the students and the families and the teams that kind of plan their whole summer vacation around making sure that they are in Indianapolis this weekend in July so that they can come to IRI, regardless of if their team is competing or not.
I remember it was either last year or the year before, you guys had a great big virtual reality set up, and Andy Mark had a nice booth there, and there were some vendors there. What are some of the other things that teams are going to see at IRI besides the competition?
Yeah, we do have some vendor booths that get set up every year. You mentioned Andy Mark, and they're one of the big ones. We've also, for the past couple of years, had a First Tech Challenge event happening at the same time, the FTC IRI happening at the same time. That's unfortunately not happening this year because of some renovations that are going on at the school. We don't have the space to host it. But one of the big things that we do is Friday night we feed everyone. So included in your team registration is this Friday night meal. And it's, again, just a great opportunity for teams to sit down once the matches are all over, kids from different teams to meet, mentors to catch up, if you haven't had the opportunity to talk to somebody in a couple of months. I think about, going to championship, and it's a great experience, but once the matches are over, we've got to get on the bus and get back to our hotel, and we pretty much do dinner, by ourselves, our team. And so for us, IRI is a great opportunity for our kids to, meet and interact with kids from other teams, and start to build those relationships, especially kids from across the country. Being in districts in Indiana, our kids don't get to travel a whole lot as much anymore, and so the opportunity to meet the kids from California, from New England, from Texas, is great for them.
And how can teams, if they can't get down to you and they're not competing and they want to watch, how do they watch the event?
The event will be streamed on, I believe it will be on the First Twitch channel, one of the official First channels. They opened up their channel to us last year. We're actually still talking to them about what all we're going to do and have available. But the big thing that we started doing a couple of years ago was a show that we call IRI Live. And it's a show very similar to what the RSN crew does at Championship with their, the First Champ Live. Very much modeled off of that, where it's a show dedicated for the at-home viewer. So we use the in-house commentary during the match. Tyler Olds and Dan Green, our MC and our primary game announcer, are fabulous. And so they take us through the match, but then as soon as the match is over, the RSN crew picks it up and goes into match replay and talks about some of the strategy that they saw. And these are, some of the brightest strategic minds in First. And so you really get to kind of get that inside look if you're watching at home that you may not have gotten the opportunity to see if you're in-house. And we've actually had quite a few people who have gone out to sit in their car and streamed the live show on their phone, because they wanted to hear the certain things that were being said at certain points. So it's kind of funny how you make a show for people at home, and the people in the stands want to make sure that they see it too, and the things that they'll do to make sure they can catch every aspect of IRI. So we'll make sure that we post, on Chief Delphi, on our Twitter account, on our website about how you can watch the show. But it will be on Twitch, and I believe on one of the first channels.
And what are the official dates for IRI again?
IRI is, let me confirm it, it is July 13th and 14th this year. Okay. So we the teams will load in on the evening of July 12th, and we start bright and early Friday morning. It's very much modeled after a district event schedule. We've got a lot of teams that we got to get through, a lot of matches, because we want to make sure everybody gets enough play time to justify the entry fee and all the travel expenses. And we know people travel that far with their robots because they want to play, and they want to play with as many teams and against as many teams as they can. And so we want to make sure that we give teams as much time as they can, and then start up again Saturday morning. But then Saturday afternoon is really when that the elimination tournament kicks off and the fun really begins.
All right, Collin. Well, thanks for all the information on IRI. But now I'm going to flip the lid on this podcast because you opened a whole new can of questions that I want to ask. Now,
okay.
For just so you know, and we just met, today, like literally 5 minutes before we started recording, and I'm now not a rookie mentor. My team their rookie year was last year with Power Up, and now we're not rookies. We're second years or sophomores or whatever terminology you want to use. Some people still call us a rookie team. That's fine. I don't care. So I've always found it interesting because this isn't my first team, of how the kit of parts and that registration and all that stuff, how that stuff works, like first choice and everything like that. So can you tell us a little bit, or give mentors that are just starting their teams, maybe they have a rookie team that they're starting this year and they're listening to the podcast, how that kit of parts gets put together, how it's determined what it's going to go into the kit of parts, and that type of thing?
Yeah. So the kit, and I, like I said, I left that position in 2015. So things are generally the same, but have evolved a little bit. And all the credit in the world goes to my boss at the time, and she's still the kit of parts manager. Her name is Kate. See her on all of the field tour videos that FRC puts out. And she's been working on the kit for a long time, and really was the pioneer behind First Choice and making that all work. But the kit really evolves as the needs of the FRC teams evolve. For a long time, it was everybody gets the exact same kit of parts, and even going back, really old school of First, it was really all you could use. And then the rules started to open up little by little. I think 2010 was the first year that there was a veteran kit and a separate rookie kit. That was the first year that veterans were supposed to reuse the original Compact Rio and some of the control systems components. And then I think 2011 was the first year of First Choice. And so what that is, it used to be if a sponsor came to First, or if Dean wrangled a potential supplier to First, and they said, oh yeah, we would love to donate this motor or this sensor, but we can really only do 500 of them. Once First got past 500 teams, 500 FRC teams, we couldn't say yes anymore. But we knew that not every team that got one in the kit was going to use it. And so this was feedback that Kate and others in FRC had been hearing for a number of years, was like, man, it would be great if we could have like Amazon, and there could be some way that we could go in and spend some number of credits, to get the parts that we use every year, because we know that, certain teams rarely use pneumatics. And so it didn't make sense for them to be getting all the pneumatic components every year. Certain teams use pneumatics every year, but they may not ever have used a certain motor or a certain sensor, especially now, since that there are so many different motors that are legal and motor controllers that are legal. It really is a way for teams to get the parts that they need. We reduce waste, and it's really more efficient for the suppliers, because they know that now every part that they're donating is getting used by a team, and it's not ending up, in a bin in a storage closet somewhere. And so suppliers have really liked it. We, at least when I was there and had access to all the survey feedback, the teams really liked it. It evolved year after year, again, based on feedback from surveys and going to events and actually talking to teams and mentors. But that would be the biggest piece of advice that I would have for all mentors and coaches, but especially rookie ones, is, take the opportunity to fill out those surveys. I know that there are a lot of them and that they can get long, but I promise you that people do read them. One of my jobs when I worked on the FRC Kit of Parts teams was to go through and read all 1,100 Kit of Parts survey results that we got every year. And that's how we, picked up on ideas about, this part would be really good to include, or, hey, not a lot of teams are using, this specific piece, but a lot of people are interested in this other kind of, a similar piece that may be more effective. So for all mentors and especially rookies, fill out the surveys, talk to people in your area, and anytime you can get, the ear of a first staffer, because that's really how the program has evolved over the years, is based on the feedback from the mentors and the coaches and the students and volunteers.
And to be clear, because this is my direct question to you as a second-year mentor, we don't get another RoboReel, correct?
Yeah, that is correct. You can, I believe, and I unfortunately don't know the specific details, but I believe that there is a discounted price available through NI for second-year teams. But it is kind of expected that you reuse that RoboReel, for a couple of years.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of how I can have a practice spot, because it seems with as competitive as FRC is, and I'm sure you understand, that if you don't have a practice spot, you really are in a hindrance of being able to do things. And on Team 234, that's part of our budget, is buying a new RoboReel. We use the one from the previous year on the next year's practice bot, and then use the new one on our competition bot. But as much, if we walked around the teams at IRI, probably every team there had a practice robot. But generally across FRC, the number is still very much the minority. And so I understand the perspective from first of, asking teams to reuse them, and then those teams who want to have that practice robot for competitive reasons, or getting other teams, or getting other, more kids involved on the team. It's not, when you look at an overall FRC budget, and what it costs to build a robot and compete for a season, that the RoboReel is not a huge chunk there. No, there's other things. We're already planning for next year. We're already, purchasing things, and that's one of the things that I didn't know. I know you can always try to get one out from your first choice. There are a certain amount of them that are offered at that point, but then you're kind of, it's a lottery, so you have no idea if you're going to be the first one to get it or not. So right. The good thing with first choice now, and that's one of the things that we've learned. The first round of first choice used to not happen until after kickoff. And so we moved that up to before kickoff day, so that teams can react to what they do or don't get in first choice. And so if you want to, use that as your first option, and then if you don't get something that you want through first choice, use it. Use some of the cash that you have to buy one. But that's one of the big things that I think teams learn and evolve as they kind of mature within FRC, is what are all of those things that we know every year we are going to use, and let's get them, in our hands, get them stocked, make sure we know where they are, so that when build season comes and that crazy 6 weeks happens, we are not, one of the 4,000 teams trying to order, whatever specialized part it is that year that everybody needs. So a lot of that raw material, bearings, motors, things like that, you can pretty well guess that, if a motor shows up in first choice, it's probably going to be legal. I think for the last couple of years, they've actually come out and said
all the motors in First Choice are legal, to help teams know, like, okay, these are ones that we at least know we're going to be able to use. So getting all that stuff ahead of build season, so you can spend your time prototyping and designing and tweaking and refining and then practicing, and not waiting on a shipment when you never know what the weather's going to do, or what what part is going to get stuck in customs trying to get into the U.S. You're kind of rolling the dice there, and so getting it in early can really help save precious time come kickoff.
I know this past year for Power Up, everyone and their sister, brother, family member, distant cousin was trying to get those compliant wheels, those green compliant wheels, because we all use them for our intakes.
We did too.
I think like 90% of teams used those, and there were different flavors depending on the hardness you wanted, so there were different colors. But I think the green ones were everyone's pretty much favorite, and we chewed through them too. So everyone was watching, Andy Mark or any of the other supplier vendor websites to see if they came in, and they would order them right out of the get-go. You just you had one person on our team that was monitoring at all times. As soon as they came in, they would, hit the button so we could get them.
Yeah.
So Collin, what other things can you recommend for a first-year, second-year mentor and team that from working for First? I mean, there's a wealth of knowledge, and I'll invite you back for another podcast recording where we can pick up more information, because when you really work for First, I mean, you have a wealth of knowledge that I would love to know, but unfortunately for tonight, we don't have that time, right?
Yeah,
we can start the conversation.
For me, the biggest thing that it probably takes you a year to realize when you are, truly new to First and a rookie to First is how much everybody else in the community really actually does want to help you. I've walked around pits and gone into rookie teams' pits and had mentors cover up the robot because they thought that I was there to spy on them, right? And really, I'm just there because I want to make sure as a rookie team that they're doing okay, they have what they need. Did they build their bumpers correctly? What help can I give you to get through inspection? Those types of things. And so learning that the people that are walking around the pits, the people that have been doing this for 20 years, they can be your best friends, especially at competitions. They're the people who can act like that race car pit crew team, and can help you get a robot that seems like there's no way we can make our next match, and they can get that robot out there and help you, really make sure you have a good event. And so the biggest thing is to just be open to the help. Really at any stage, but especially your rookie year. The staff in your area, whether you're in a region, an area that does regions, and so you have a regional director, or you're in districts, and so you have your kind of your statewide planning committee, whether it be First in Michigan, Indiana First, PNW, wherever. But then your senior mentors, and then those folks that have just been doing it a long time. It's reach out to help, because we all want to see everybody be successful, and nobody wants to see anybody go to an event and not have a good time. We all know how hard your rookie year is and how hard every year is, how much time and effort goes in. And so to be able to help a rookie team kind of have a nice capstone for that process of a good event where they get to see their robot out on the field competing. They hopefully get to see it doing what they designed it to do. That I think is what keeps a lot of veteran mentors going is their own team, but then helping those rookie teams as well.
This has been one of the best podcast recordings. I'm not joking around, and that's not hindering on anyone else. But I mean, just to get a little bit of an insight on how First works, and like the kit of parts, being a newer head mentor, it really opens my eyes. And then the information on IRI has been great. So I have two more questions for you, Collin. I'll let you go. The first one is you've been a mentor, you're alumni. What is your favorite for FRC game to date?
I'm going to get really nerdy here, really FRC nerdy. And I think that you can't compare 2-on-2 versus 3-on-3 games. I think they're two separate eras of first. So my favorite game from 2-on-2 was 2004. First Frenzy. That was the last 2-on-2 game, and it was also my senior year of high school when I was on our drive team. I was the human player, so all of that was a lot of fun, and it was just a great game. And then from 3-on-3, I think that my favorite game was 2012 Rebound Rumble. Being from Indiana and that game having a strong basketball focus, they married two of my very strong passions in first and basketball. And then that was the first year that I was really on game design for the whole process of the designing the game. And so to have that field set up at First Headquarters for as long as we did, and working with the team on the tweaks, and trying to balance everything, and then being able to see the game played. I thought it was a really well balanced game, and was a lot of fun to watch the teeter-totters at the end and shooting basketballs. So those are my two.
Okay, and I appreciate that answer. Not the one I expected, but in itself, I love the answer. So the last one I have for you is, what do you think Deep Space is going to be?
I honestly don't know.
I ask this question to everyone I have on the podcast. So knowing that you worked for First, that's not how I'm approaching this. I'm not trying to get you to give up some information.
No,
everyone's really listening very hard right now.
That's fair. And unfortunately, I know that no matter how many disclaimers I put in front of it, no one is going to believe that I have no idea what the game actually is. So I will. I don't know. I didn't know what this year's game was. This was the first year that I haven't known since 2011. And I loved the Christmas morning feel of kickoff, of not knowing what I was going to see. And so I am really looking forward to it. I think that the team at First and the external folks that they bring in do a really great job of kind of pushing the limits. I would never have predicted, the balancing and everything that went into Power Up. I thought that was just super creative. I think there are maybe some historical trends that you could look at for, the shape of the game piece, and what that could be. It's been a long time since there was really a big projectile focus in an FRC game. Steamworks had it a little bit, but it was kind of a secondary action to the gears, unless you were playing at a super high level. So really from there you have to go back to 2016, and with this game being 2019, we're a few years removed from, shooting a ball. So there are some historical pieces that you can look at to say, oh, the game will probably have this. But I really don't know, and I wouldn't put anything past Frank and the team at First that puts the game together each year. There are a lot of really creative and passionate FRC folks as well.
So you don't, just from your own personal view, do you think it's going to be a shooting game? I think we're in for a shooting game, maybe.
That would be where I would bet, but I don't think it's necessarily a favorite. I think it's potentially like a plurality of probability there.
Okay. Well, Collin, I wanted
to dance around that as much as I can.
That was a nice polka. Oh,
yeah.
We can't use polka. Kids won't understand what I'm talking about.
No.
Nice Fortnite dance. How about that?
Now I don't know.
Understand that one.
Now I don't know what you're talking about. So.
Well, then I'm covering both angles.
Fair
Collin,
enough.
I want to thank you for coming on the podcast. It's been a great interview, great conversation. I enjoyed meeting you. So as you sign out, please tell us your first name, last name, the team that you work with, and then as you go out, what the social media to follow the IRI event is.
Sure. So once again, Collin Fultz, mentor on Team 234, Cyber Blue from Indianapolis, Indiana. And for all IRI, Indiana Robotics Invitationals information, you can check out our website, which is indianaroboticsinvitational.org, or find us on Twitter, which is IRI Comp. So IRICOMP is our Twitter.
Again, Collin, thanks for coming on the podcast. If those teams, I bet you they're practicing right now, getting ready for IRI. It's only a couple weeks away. I can't believe we're almost in July.
I know it comes faster and faster every year, and I can't wait. It's always a blast.
The RoboZone podcast is brought to you by Kettering University. It's a Kettering-built world.
Again, I'd like to thank Collin for coming on the podcast tonight, giving us some insight on what IRI is all about, giving us some insight, especially for how the kit of parts is chosen every year, which I found fascinating. And I've already put Collin on the hook to come back on board with the podcast at a later date to tell us some more information about how things are set up from the FRC and working for First Aspect. Thank you for listening to the RoboZone podcast. This has been the 65th episode of the RoboZone podcast. You can listen to us on Google Music, Apple iTunes Podcasts, and SoundCloud. Thank you for listening. We will see you next week.
Thanks for listening to the RoboZone podcast with your host, Pete Ekman. Find us online at RoboZoneTV.com and on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram.